Hey, how you doing, Mr. Shapiro?
Hey, how's it going?
So you mentioned intersectionality and leftists not allowing you to give your input in issues when you don't reflect the community affected. So I wanted to ask if you don't think government-run welfare programs are necessary to help alleviate the disparity of wealth and the relative lack of capital within the African American community, what do you propose to positively influence the black economy?
So I think that the basis of a strong economy is strong families and and less violation of the law. And this is true for every community. It's true in white Appalachia. It was true in the early 20th century with Italians and Irish and, yes, Jews, who had actually a pretty high crime rate in the early 20th century. All of that is really necessary. Welfare policies have been pursued since the 1960s. It has not alleviated the wealth disparity between blacks and whites in the United States over the past 50 years, and we've poured something like $22 trillion into our various welfare programs with that in mind. What we really need, is good individual decision making, and what that means is fathers who guys who don't knock up ladies and leave, right? Guys who stay in the home with their children and marry the mom, who are willing to go out and maybe leave the community in which they are located and go out and get a job, who finish high school, right? Like the Brookings Institute says that you don't have, living in permanent poverty in the United States, that's basically in the United States for virtually everyone because you failed one of these three tests. You have to do three things. You have to graduate high school, you have to get a job, you have to not have babies out of wedlock. You do those three things, you're not going to be permanently poor in the United States, and there are high levels of income mobility if you don't do those three things. None of those three things is really in the control of the government, meaning that there's no question that the black community is starting at a disadvantage because of historical disparities in wealth due to racism, due to slavery, due to Jim Crow. All of that is 100% true. But the real question is why mobility rates in the black community are not as high as mobility rates in, for example, the Hispanic community or the Asian community or other communities. And that has a lot more to do with cultures of poverty that have sprung up. And again, this is not unique to black communities. It's true, J.D. Vance talks about it in Hillbilly Elegy. It's true for a lot of communities where fathers are not in the home and where crime is seen as an alternative to work. And that is not all economic pressure. Just pouring money, you want to build up an area, get rid of the crime in an area, and businesses will come in because now there are markets in the area. You don't have to worry about the crime rates. If you want less run-ins with the police, then you need to have an area that has less crime in it in order for the police not to be in that area. A lot of problems can be alleviated, not completely fixed for every single person, but alleviated by good decision-making that is encouraged at a societal level. Okay. That's where things need to start. I mean, before we start blaming all of society for institutional racism, we first have to say, have you made the decisions necessary for success? And then if you have and you're still failing, then we can say, okay, what are the factors that are leading to failure? Who's standing in your way? Okay. But if you're knocking up a girl and leaving, or if you commit a crime and you go to jail, it's not fair to blame society for that. That's your fault. You committed a crime and you knocked up a girl, and that is a bad thing you did, and there are consequences to decisions.